you were talking about the royal family, Charles isn't. I don't know what Charles has to do with the FCN, but I saw his picture on your website anyway.
He's Prince of Wales is our patron, so he's supportive of FCN. I think he's patron of a few charities as well. So Prince's Countryside Fund, perhaps as well.
What's his role there? Is he just as a figurehead, or does he come around and do anything particular for you?
Yeah, so in normal times that we would potentially do events that involve him. Obviously, it's been not possible recently. We were planning a 25th anniversary event, which last year, which would have been most likely involved him, but again wasn't possible. But also, it's a symbolic thing. It's an endorsement of FCN and the work that we do. So it's it's really good for FCN that's the case.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just saw his picture there today. I didn't realize. So it's pretty strange. I think they do quite a lot of good stuff around the place, certainly for getting things like this out in the open, because he goes often to the agricultural shows when they're on as well, doesn't he? It's quite funny seeing him in his kilt when he goes up to the Highland show, but he's I don't think he suits him that well, but it could work. And everything else going on now, because they own quite a lot of land as well, don't they? I'm not sure they probably farm it, but
No. Well, on the land front, I think that's something as well. I mean, I'm sure your audience are obviously likely familiar with farming in the UK, but perhaps for those who aren't, I think it's worth mentioning the amount of work that farmers do into sort of tending to the land. So it's something like 70 to 75% of the British sort of land countryside maintained by farmers. And so that was one of the things that I sort of picked up on very, very, very early when I came to FCN, because I love the countryside. I love going for walks. And, I guess it's just one of those extra things that farmers do that people don't necessarily think about, and they don't necessarily realize who's actually doing that work in terms of tending to the land and making sure, it's all well cultivated and all that kind of stuff. And people just think it just sort of happens. And
or who cleans the roads when the snow comes occasionally it's the council, but and this sort of thing as well. Actually, considering you just brought that up, we just spoke to Tim Thorpe earlier today, but I don't know which one of you will be out first, but we were talking to him about the future. I don't know if FCN does much on that, given your position as a more of a people-based organization, but they were talking about probably in the future, certainly in their vision, that the land would need to be more sort of wooded and more gone back to not being so managed as you said. What sort of effect do you think that's going to have on, given that the farmers have been doing it for quite a while, on the human side of the rural population?
Yeah, so I know that in terms of the government's plans for the future of agriculture, and the new environmental land management scheme is more focused on that environmental side. I for it's going to mean change, right? It's going to mean a different way of doing things, a different way of operating that's perhaps different from what you're used to. But I think it's probably worth saying that no 2 days are the same in farming anyway, and farmers are quite resilient and quite good at dealing with change. It's not the first time that they've experienced change. And that's not at all to dismiss those who are concerned about the future, because there are farmers who are obviously concerned about how they might have to change their businesses or diversify or whatever it is they might be considering for the future of their business. But if anyone can adapt to the changes, I would say it's going to be farmers, because they're so good at rolling with the punches, getting back up. But what obviously what I would say on top of that, though, is that if you are a farmer and you are struggling, or you're starting to feel it's taking a toll on your mental health, it's starting to really get you down, then FCN is one of the charities available who can talk to you and try and help you in some capacity. So we do obviously say that that thing you hear a lot, that don't suffer in silence. It's okay to not be okay, and all those kind of things. And it is true. Farmers are quite proud people a lot of the time, and for good reason, and don't necessarily want to ask for help, or don't necessarily feel that they should ask for help. But there's no shame at all in recognizing that sometimes you can't do it all alone, and getting help from those around you is no bad thing.
That's hard for, as I said earlier, though, that's hard for like, I don't know what it is with I don't know if it's just us Brits or whether it's people around the world, but I mean, at the best of times, we don't really like talking about emotions in the open, certainly. I mean, obviously on a phone line may be different, but, and then as well, I mean, what do you think that the effects on agriculture are sort of exacerbated, given that predominantly, and certainly like, in stereotypes, the average farmer is older and male, and obviously that's got more of a, I don't know, I mean, it's statistically that men are obviously less likely to want to go and talk about their emotions anyway, from if what I read is true most of the time. And particularly, you've got farmers who are very, as you said, very proud, sort of more traditional types as well. Is it sometimes quite hard to get into some of these places, particularly if this could do with some help that you offer, but there's just no way of getting through to them or something?
Yeah, it can be a challenge, although I would say that it's interesting with FCM, because in terms of the calls that we get to our helpline, there's almost an equal number of men and women calling FCM, and not every helpline would necessarily tell you the same thing, because like you said, I think evidence would probably suggest that women are more likely to open up and more likely to do something like call a helpline than a bloke would. But the evidence that FCN sees in relation to it calls to its helpline don't necessarily match with that. In terms of making it, if it's difficult to reach farmers, quite often it can be. You mentioned that older demographic. So I think the average age for a farmer in the UK is about 59 or 60. And so one challenge is obviously trying to encourage more young people to go into farming. And it can be quite a challenge, particularly if you are a farmer and you've got children who you expect to inherit the business after you retire. And they don't necessarily want to. In some instances, there can obviously be a challenge there, because then the question is, what do we do with the farm? So that's one issue. And in terms of reaching farmers themselves, we get good engagement with the younger farmers, and we do get good engagement with the farmers that are active on social media. And that isn't always the younger people as well. There are plenty of farmers in the older age bracket who are using social media and very active. But
Harry's Farm is a good one around here. I don't know if you know Harry's Farm.
I don't know. But
he's quite popular in America, actually. I think he's most popular. He's just literally just up the road, so give Harry's Farm a look out.
Yeah. No, that's good, and that's great. And I think that's really, really good that there are obviously older farmers who are using the newer technology and fully embracing it and all that. But yeah, it is a challenge reaching farmers who perhaps online aren't using social media. Getting the message across is a challenge. But we work quite closely with organizations that are already reaching out to farmers, and that can be sort of like farming media publications like Farmers Weekly, Farmers Guardian, Farmers Guide, those sorts of publications we work with quite closely to showcase FCN and let people know we're available. We work with other organizations to hand out leaflets about FCN to farmers, and doing basically whatever we can do to get information about FCN into the hands of the people who need it. Quite often, we're not necessarily expecting people to take some of our literature or one of our helpline cards or whatever it is, and to then immediately go home and ring us. What it is useful is to sort of say to a farmer, if you just take this, put it in your wallet, whatever, and whether you or not even necessarily you, but a friend, or if you see a friend that you suddenly notice a change in their behavior, or a neighbor or a family member, just keep us in mind. You'll remember that you've taken our helpline card, for example, and if you suddenly sort of feel like you need to talk to someone, or someone else who might, you hopefully remember, oh, I've got that card from that charity, didn't I? You'll check in your wallet, you'll be like, okay, here's the number.
Or give them a squeezy cow, like I got in my room. There's one behind you, the squeezy cow there. It's got his number on, right? Has it got the number on the back?
It does, yeah. It's got the FCN helpline on the back of it, which is 03000 111 999. Not sure if that's coming across, but
we'll share that. We'll share the 9.
These are good. I don't use it that much because I'm thankfully not that stressed. But this is one of the things that we do, and that's one of the quirky ways that you can try and get it across to people. But
definitely.
At the end of the day, we're just encouraging people to you don't have to go it alone, and FCN is here to support you and to be that sort of force that can walk alongside you and help you.
Yeah, sure.